This is partly in response to a guy who commented on a previous video I made about the situation in Syria. I'm not going to give him attention by saying who it was, but if he's watching this, he knows who he is. Anyway, this person is just typical of some of the sort of people I come across occasionally who are so incredibly blinded by their hatred of America and Britain and the West in general that they cannot seem to have any sort of rational reflection on situations. What I mean by that is that they have allowed themselves to become so blinded by their hatred of the West that they cannot for a second comprehend that there are other parties involved in geopolitics. Now, one of the difficulties in trying to debate with these people is they automatically pigeonhole you as a stooge of America, as a CIA supporter, as a neocon, this sort of thing. Well, if I was any of those things, then I would slavishly support Britain and America no matter what. It is true that I occasionally support British and American positions, that is true. But there's been many times in my life I have been vocally against British and American positions. I actively opposed the Iraq War. I was one of the protesters against that. And there's many areas I can think of where there's legitimate critique. But the problem with this sort of thinking is, as soon as you start to endorse conspiracy theories, there's no red line. What I mean by that is, you start to believe absolutely anything if it fits into what you want to believe. So these people who are motivated by their hatred of America will endorse news sources that are anti-American. One of the most notable right now is the network Russia Today. Now, I often see with people who come out with conspiracy theories, they tend to have a lot of videos from Russia Today, and I find that rather ironic because Russia Today is not a credible news source, and I think you're deluded if you think it is. Now, no doubt they will hit back and say, oh well, BBC and CNN are biased. Yeah, true. But Russia Today is a relatively new channel. I believe it was set up in 2005, and it doesn't even try to hide its propaganda. It doesn't even try to hide its rabid anti-American, anti-British sentiment. Clearly it is a network that has an agenda. It's not a professional news source at all. It has an ultra-nationalist agenda, and if you look at the background of some of the editors at Russia Today, it really highlights that point with the sort of mentality that they have. What we're dealing with here is extreme Russian nationalists. Basically, it's the Russian equivalent of Fox News, but worse, because everyone knows Fox News is idiotic, at least a lot of people do. Russia Today, unfortunately, a lot of otherwise intelligent people seem to think that it's a credible news source. I find that slightly alarming because it's really a joke. It's really... I cannot think of a single Russia Today report that doesn't have some rant about Britain or America, or France for that matter. Clearly it is motivated by an agenda. And for people to actually endorse this as the truth, as the whole truth, is slightly alarming. I think they're doing it because they want to vindicate themselves. So they have heard lots of things about American foreign policy, some of it true, granted, but they want to vindicate their own hatred. And these are people who cannot comprehend that there are other powerful parties at play. I mean, if you think the Russian government is an underdog, that's a big mistake. The Russian government is very powerful, so is the Chinese government, and so is many other parties involved in geopolitical situations. I want to make a few points clear. And I don't give a shit if you believe me or not, but I'm just saying this for the record. I am not a stooge of Britain or America's foreign policy. I'm not. If I believe that something is wrong, I will criticise it. I am a man of conviction. That doesn't mean I know everything, and I never ever pretend to, but if I believe something is wrong, I will say so. I'm not going to support British or American position just because they're British or American. For example, for years, Britain and America played double games, and in many cases funded dictators, so that was shameful. So I'm under no illusions about that, and I do resent when these rabid anti-Americans try to portray me as a neocon. Whatever, I don't lose sleep over their opinion, but they are factually wrong. I'm not slavishly pro-American. The last guy that attacked me claimed that I love the Queen, and that's just childish. I don't love the Queen. And there's many areas I can think of criticising the Windsor dynasty. I'm not an ultranationalist. There's many problems in this country which I often criticise, and I am not slavishly in favour of our policy. It's true I do support some of our policy, but there's many areas I can think of criticising. For example, the Queen was wrong to invite some of the most despotic leaders in the Middle East to banquets. That was disgraceful, and I think not only was it being out of touch with what was happening in the Arabian Spring, but it's morally wrong. Prince Andrew is far too close to the Uzbek regime. So the idea that I'm slavishly pro-British establishment is just odious. I hate, for example, the Tories' welfare policies. There's a lot of areas I can... Well, I don't even have to justify myself. But it just pisses me off that there are people out there with such a chip on their shoulder, so blinded by their anti-Western hatred, even though they're perfectly happy to live in the West. Yeah, clearly they are so anti-Western, anti-American, anti-British. Oh, but hey, it's a good place to live. Now, people will say, oh, but they're just criticising politics. Actually, if you look at the underlying theme of what these people's logic, they're just anti-Western, full stop. They're so rabidly blinded by their hatred that they cannot objectively look at anything else. And another point about these sort of people is they never have answers. Now, I do not know everything, I admit that. But at least I do not claim to know everything. I do not assume these sort of positions and say, oh, well, I would do something better. I don't criticise governments and say I can do a better job. You know, these people are very quick to blame America for everything. Of course, America wiped out the dinosaurs, right? But they never ever have answers. I mean, they will say things that, oh yeah, Assad's a brutal dictator, but they never have answers for what to do about it, and that really pisses me off. Because they never ever have answers. They're very good at criticising, they're crap at giving answers. And I just think that's astonishingly hypocritical. So I'm not going to take lectures or be preached to by anybody, because I never, at any point, at no point do I claim that I know everything. I am reflecting my opinions, and I accept that when you're talking about serious subjects like war and geopolitical issues, it's a controversial issue. It's a controversial medium to talk about. So I'm not thin-skinned, I can take criticism, but I won't take baseless criticism. You know, if someone's going to speak to me in a civil way and say, actually, you're misinformed about this, fair enough. But if people are going to portray me as an American stooge or something like that, they can piss off, really, because they don't know me. They don't know me personally. They don't know my views on everything. I am an opinionated person. I do make a lot of videos, so, you know, I have to be adult and expect that there'll be counter opinions. That's fine. But a lot of the people who are so anti-American seem to also endorse a lot of conspiracy theories. And the problem with conspiracy theories is there's absolutely no limit to them. I mean, if you want to believe the sort of Jesse Ventura school of thought, go ahead. But that sort of... a lot of his shows can be debunked. Not debunked completely, but there's a lot of holes in a lot of those arguments. A lot of very obvious things. It's basically sensationalism. People like to think that there's some massive conspiracy, because that is much more exciting than the simple idea that there's actually people out there who hate democratic values, and they hate Britain and America. And I'm frankly getting a bit sick and tired of people who enjoy living in our societies but have nothing but negativity to spew out of their mouths. I'm getting sick of it. And it really pisses me off that they take advantage of the freedom of expression that we have in these societies, and they use that to attack the establishment. It's just, there's so many holes in their arguments, it's unbelievable. Rant over.